can grief motivate you to make a positive impact? We're going to talk about that and a little bit more today on Monday Morning Glory. Welcome to today's show. My name is Jasmine McGlure,
And I'm Mary Miller.
and we are both life coaches who experienced sudden, devastating loss, but we decided to turn our pain into a purpose. And we want to be a resource for other people who are grieving the loss of a loved one, as well as devastation or disappointment in life. So you can grieve all of those things. And so we want to be here to help walk you through. So, welcome to today's show. And so we're going to share a little bit about some of the things that our grief has motivated us to do. I know that Mary runs a grief share at her church, but that was not always the case, right, Mary?
No, no,
That
mm-mm,
was not always the
no,
case. I don't even think a grief share even existed
no,
at that church before
no,
you started it. So
no.
it might seem a little bit obvious to some people, like, yeah, of course you start a grief share because you grieved, but that is not always like just as plain as you can see on the surface. So tell us a little bit about what motivated you to still want to give out of a place of your own pain.
Um, well, uh I knew as a life coach, um, my husband passed away. And so first of all, just for those of you who are maybe just tuning in, I lost my husband very suddenly 3 years ago. And when I say very suddenly, I mean he died in the middle of the night and he was gone in like seconds, seconds. And so it was very shocking. I was numb. I was, and I was, uh, I'm trying, uh, I was pretty, devastated. I guess that would be a word that I could say, that that my church that I've been a member of for, 25 years really had nothing, to offer as far as support for somebody in grief. And like I said, as a life coach, and I do work out of my church, um, I I started basically was coaching myself and said, okay, if I was working with somebody like this, what would I be telling them? And it was like, you need to get support, but where? So I actually went online and I was looking for grief support groups, where can I go? And I found another church in our area that was offering a group called Grief Share. And it was about a month after my husband had passed. And so I started, and actually, Jasmine, if you remember, you offered to go with me. You know, you said, I'll go with you. And
Yep.
uh, so you came and you sat in the first class with me. And basically I was at the place. I was like, that would be awesome because I know you were already in your grief journey. And so, but it was like, I'm going to go anyway, but that would be great if you went with me. And I think we both were kind of surprised at how much it felt helpful.
Hmm.
Um, I think more so for you at that time because you were a little further on. I was still pretty numb, but I was determined I was going to continue. So at that time, Grief Share is it's actually all over the country and all over I think it's all over the world, but I know it's all over the country. And it's a 13-week group, where you meet every week. And I know you were impacted enough that you had decided, "Oh, I'm going to look for one where around where I live because you live a ways away from where I live." And so I attended, actually, I went through the group 3 times that year, um, because it was one of those things that I dreaded it and looked forward to it all at the same time. And so it's can't hardly explain it, but I was still at the same time, like I said, I was dealing with uh, really working hard at not being carrying an offense that I didn't really get a whole lot of support from my church at the time. And um, but how God lots of times works with me is like, I'm not. I'm not going to be, I know until you've walked through it, you don't know. Uh, as a life coach, I have worked with people in grief, and I realize now I really had no clue what they were dealing with and what they needed and that type of thing. So, but I felt like the Lord said to me, "So what are you going to do about it?" And it was like, I'm not in any shape right now. And it was like the Lord said, yeah, I know, but I want you to think about that. What are you going to do about it? So it was about a year later, I started talking to the leadership of my church. And I was very honest with them about what I experienced. And basically what I said, how wonderful it would be for me to get the support that I need at my own home church where I'm comfortable, where I'm,
Mm.
and so they've been very, very supportive, very supportive. I cannot say, enough positive things about that. Anything I needed, you got it.
And
And
how many
so
are you now? Because you've been leading it now. How many sessions? How many grief shares have you led?
I've done uh three. I'm just starting next week. I'm starting the fourth session.
Wow.
So I started um the fall of 2022. Um, is that right? Yes.
Mm.
No, 2023.
Okay. Okay.
Started the fall of 2023. My husband died in the December of 2021. So I went through grief share at this other church for the whole year of 2022
Hmm.
and into 2023. And I
Hmm.
started in the fall of 2023.
Yeah.
And so I do the sessions twice a year. Um, because like I said, it's about we start out with there's a standalone session called loss of a spouse that's specifically because I'll be honest, I can't imagine losing a child. I've lost both of my parents. I have lost a brother, but losing your spouse is it totally explodes your life. You lose half of yourself, especially when you've been together for a long time. My husband and I have been married for 46 years. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's a whole identity. It's like you've lost half of yourself. And so
Hmm.
it really does disrupt your life hugely. Even though I know losing, a child I can't imagine that either, but that's a disruption also.
Hmm.
And so we start out with loss of a spouse, and then we do a 13-week grief share of where for anybody, any kind of a loss, that has lost a loved one. And then once a year toward the end of the year, usually in November, I do one. It's called Surviving the Holidays. And so that's specific, for, how do you handle, especially with, the holidays coming up. But that it isn't just uh Christmas and New Year's, you've got holidays like, anniversaries and birthdays and, but this is really centered around the holidays. But we talk about other things throughout grief share. So that's
Hmm.
really what motivated me because found how much it helped me to be connected in a community of people who understood, who got it. And like
Hmm.
I tell the groups that I meet with, that we meet in our grief share, I said, this has become a fraternity and a sorority that you get drafted into. Nobody joins voluntarily,
Hmm.
but you get drafted into this. But how healing it is, because I heard a lot of people was like, why would I want to join something like that? Yeah, just, I already feel bad enough and I don't want to hear everybody else's story, but you have no idea how cathartic that is, how much it feels. You get it. You understand. And you don't have to be ashamed of your tears. You don't have to be ashamed of your emoting because they all get it. They all understand.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there were some times that there were some people that would come to the group and you can participate if you choose to, you don't have to, but there was a few times that there were people come and they couldn't even talk. I mean, because all they did was cry. So all they could do was talk, but that's okay, you know.
Yeah.
And so that was what motivated me, that I wanted to be create a safe place for people that in our home, because it's a fairly large church that we have. And so I was actually quite surprised, even though I'd been there for a long time. I was quite surprised that they really didn't have anything in place. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I think that the leadership has been, they're extremely grateful that now somebody has taken that on, because they've seen the whole too. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so, and that's generally what it takes, is something out of some tragedy, something, you know, comes out. And
Oh,
so that was my motivation to um, make a safe place, uh, and help people to have a community for people to come and find healing. And
mm-hmm.
the feedback that I've gotten is from the people who have regularly attended the groups, um, said, you know, they just can't get over how much it has helped them, thinking that it was going to actually be hard, but it was so easy. It was made it so much easier to be able to have some place to just talk, you know,
Yeah.
other people who get it.
Yeah.
So, so
Yeah.
that was my motivation.
Yeah. Yeah.
In some
It's
ways, it
it.
came out of an offense. Basically, I don't want to be offended. It was like, okay, Lord, what are you going to do? Lord tells me, what are you going to do about it? So it's like, okay, you know.
Hmm. It's funny, like yeah, all of the things, a lot of the things that we have, inventions, services, it always comes from a pain point, right?
Hmm.
It's like somebody's like, I need to fix this. This is what's
Yes.
broken with the system. I need to fix it.
Uh-huh.
And so you saw something that was not available and you made it available. And so maybe
Hmm.
there's somebody watching today and they're like, oh, you're talking to me. I've been resisting trying to, because we don't want to have to face our pain on that consistent basis.
Hmm.
But the way I really believe about it is that it's like that's where you find the wisdom. That's where courage is found. Courage is not
Hmm.
found by walking the other in the opposite direction. Courage is found by walking into it. And actually healing seems to come through giving. And it's not just shutting down and being in isolation, although I think that helps in terms of just being to yourself or a little bit for a season. But giving has it's the strangest, the sowing and reaping principle. It works in just about every way, not just finances but even emotionally. And so as we're giving, somehow we're also opening ourselves up to receive, and we're also
Yes,
receiving healing simultaneously. And it's the strangest thing,
it
because like
is.
you go in that room and you're just
Uh-huh.
like, oh, I don't want to talk about my pain. I don't want to talk about my this, that, and the third. But when you go in there, especially if you're somebody who um, wants to give back, and if you're leading it, it really does something to your heart when you see that people actually need what you are providing.
Mhm.
If that's information, if that's a hug, if that's so not everybody has to start a ministry or a program. If that's on your heart, do so. But even if it's just the giving of a hug, how we're also receiving
That's
simultaneously,
right.
you
That's
know.
right. It
Um,
is out of tragedy that, God will, and it's very scriptural, that it says, you give to receive,
mm-hmm,
and and basically, so what I wanted to do was give back what I was receiving from what I got out of grief share.
mm-hmm,
But to be honest with you, like you said, I isolated for a year. For about a whole year, I couldn't even go to church. I got together with friends. The only thing that I did, now I was still, it was, I think 3 months when I finally went back to work, and I was, doing my life coaching again. But I didn't go to the only church really that I got was going to grief share. And or what if I did something online, but I did, stay to myself for a while, and for about a year. And like I said, it was about a year before I was able to finally start branching out. And like you had said, it takes courage. This is one of the taglines from my, life coaching, and it's like, you can't have courage. You can't have courage without fear.
mm-hmm,
You can't. If you don't have fear, there is no courage.
yeah,
So fear is actually the birthplace of courage. And
mm-hmm,
so we need to step out of our comfort zone.
Yeah, yeah. And I would dare say that at least, I know that like grief is this it's a Kool-Aid mixture, if you will. It's a cocktail of emotions. And I think we don't want to step into it and to use it for anything stirs up that cocktail.
Right.
And it stirs up the anger, it stirs up the sadness, it stirs up the memories, and it stirs all those things up. And so um but what I found to be most valuable in those settings um was the fact that I could go in there and say less, if that makes any sense. I didn't need to explain, I didn't need to
Right.
describe as much. There wasn't a whole lot more I needed to express being in those settings. And I found that to be like a relief, like a weight was kind of off of me.
Sure.
Like you said, you shed a tear and it's not
Mhm.
awkward in those spaces. It's like, no, this is
Mhm.
what we came here to do. Like you
Right.
don't have to hold back the weird, what you think is weird, or you don't have to worry about bringing down the room, or, things of that nature. So when you started it, I was very like, happy is kind of a weird word to even use, but I was glad, I was proud of you for taking that step, because I know that was difficult to still be in your season of numbness and to walk into that and be like, okay, well, I'm not even over my stuff yet. Because often we
Mhm.
think we got to be at the mountaintop before, we
Right.
serve others. And sometimes God calls us right where we are, right when we're
Mhm.
feeling all of it. Um, and I know when we first lost David, I couldn't think right to cook to save my life. And so one of the things I had started doing right from the break, as soon as we moved in, was like anybody who I had heard who had had a loss, my mother-in-law and I would make meals for people.
Mhm.
And I got to meet some very nice people who had lost. I mean, the losses were all over, but I got to meet more people who had lost children as well. And so just being able to give that person a hug. Some of them did pass away by suicide. So it was also just being able to look into each other's eyes, and the knowing and meeting their children and knowing that their children are hurting, and they, so that just having to, like I said, say less. Um, and so to me, I wouldn't say it makes it. There's a couple of theologies, and I'll say this, and then we'll wrap up because I know we're way over our time now. Um, but somebody had told me that the reason I lost my son was so that I could help other people when they lost their child. That is twisted. And so if you're out there and you're thinking, oh, the reason that I went through this tragedy was so I could help other people, that's not why you went through it, but you can choose to do that with it if you so.
Mhm.
So I want to make that distinction
Right.
very clear. That is not the purpose of
Mhm.
that. That's not why you lost your job. That might not be why, for somebody else. But the same is funny, Mary, because the same thing that the Lord told you is what he told me. I said, God, what do you want to do with this? And he literally asked me back. He was like, no, what do you want to do with that? I said, me. Like, what do I
Uh-huh.
want to do? I don't have all power in my hands, is what I'm thinking. But he did show me the power of my choices. And I had the choice to make my family worse. I had the choice to make my life worse as a result. And so just, all glory be to God that, one little choice
Mhm.
at a time, being able to make better and better choices. So just want to put that out there that, the purpose, when we're trying to find meaning in our suffering, I wouldn't dare say that the meaning was for, it was done so that, it could be for
Right.
this. I can't say definitively yay or nay, but it doesn't set right with me.
Mhm.
But I can say that you do have the power to choose to make a positive impact with what has ever happened in your life, to be a blessing to somebody else. And I almost guarantee that as you're being a blessing for somebody else, a blessing will come on
Right.
you, and for something for you to receive as well. And so meals was my thing, and writing a book was very helpful in healing. Um, and many, many other things. But we just want to leave you with a word of encouragement. So Mary's going to give you a word of encouragement, and then we'll wrap up our time for today.
Okay. Just remember, as what Jazz is saying, anything surrendered to God, when we let it out of our hands and we give it to him, he can make something good come out of it. So it's, when we hold on to it, when we uh, get stuck in it, when we release it to God, because let's face it, my husband was he was a gift to me. Your son was, Jasmine's son was a gift to her, but they actually belong to God. And basically, and somebody had asked me this, um, if I had the opportunity, and I told him, I said, if I had the opportunity and I had the power, I still wouldn't ask for my husband to come back. Because why would I take him away from what he's got now?
He'd
You
be like, "Do
know,
you hate me that much?"
I'm 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 jealous. I want what he has.
Hmm.
So what we surrender to God, he can make something good and beautiful out of it. It may not look like it did originally, but he can make something beautiful and good out of it. Nothing is wasted in his hands.
Yes. Yep. Thank you so much, Mary. And so, if you want to share with us a positive impact that you have made as a result of your grief. It's maybe it's motivated you to do something in your community. Maybe it's motivated you to stand up against a cause or for a cause. We would love to hear from you. We would love to know what that is. And maybe if you need some ideas or maybe more encouragement,
Mhm.
we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to me at jasminemclure.com.
And if there's a topic that you would like us to touch on, that you'd like, us to kind of, just talk to each other and talk to you about and kind of, work through it, you please add those to the comments too. And you can reach me at empoweredlivinglc@gmail.com. And my website is empoweredlivinglifecoaching.net.
Yes. Well, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.